Okay, welcome to the next part of the video. In the last video we set up our actual TransX plan for leaving Mars, going to Venus, and slinging Venus and heading off to Earth. Now it is time to fuel up and figure out how much LOX we need. Now according to TransX we are going to arrive at Earth at 57850. So let's bring up a calculator and put in that number 57580, and we're going to subtract that from today's date, even though technically we're probably leaving tomorrow, but we'll put in this date anyway, minus 57593, and I did something wrong. Try it again. Yeah, 57850. I think I put in it as 580. Minus 57593. That's better. So we need 255. No, I'm not dyslexic. 257 days worth of LOX. So we'll start by getting the LOX that we need.
LOX hatch open. LOX resupply systems online.
And we'll probably get about like 275 days, something like that, just to give us a few extra days. We don't need much. I do know that this number is quite accurate. I've flown this type of plan a couple of times, not a bunch, but I've done it before, so I know, we're not going to be. Our dates are pretty accurate. So we need 257. And we'll go with that. Any additional LOX we carry above and beyond the amount that we need is just going to mean reduced delta V. So we'll just take that amount.
LOX resupply systems offline.
And as long as we're resupplying, let's go ahead and turn the
Fuel hatch open.
let's turn the fuel lines on and get our APU.
Fueling systems no external line pressure. No external line pressure.
You have to wait for that light to quit blinking.
No external line pressure.
And you have to hit the right button.
RCS fuel tank APU fuel tanks full. Main fuel tanks full. Refueling systems offline.
Okay, now we've got the LOX and we've got the fuel that we need. So let's come back here to stage 1, and let me bring it up in the larger view just to make sure it's easy to see. Come back all the way to stage 1, and we'll set this stuff up here while we're at it. View over to setup, craft projection, and we want plan. And we'll bring the P distance down as I always do. And we're just going to set it for about 200 kilometers. I've done this so many times in so many videos that I don't feel the need to explain this part. So hopefully you know what I'm doing. If not, just watch one of my many other TransX videos. And the eject orientation, we really don't need to worry about it right now because we have to bump the clock forward till tomorrow anyway. Okay, so we need 7,000, let's call it 7,100 worth of delta V according to TransX. And of course, that's not including mid-course corrections and whatnot. Now, burn time calculator says we have 10,000, almost 11,000 worth of delta V. So I'm not gonna, that's basically 4,000 more than we need. So I don't really feel the need to bring an extra fuel module with me. Actually, before I make that determination, look at our stage 5, our Earth encounter. When we get to Earth, we are going to be traveling. I believe this is a little too fast for just being able to do straight atmospheric braking. I believe we're going to need to do some amount. We're going to I believe we're going to need to reduce our velocity by about 2,000 meters per second, maybe 2,500 meters per second, before we plan on doing atmospheric braking. I just don't think we can actually hit the atmosphere at that velocity and survive in any way, shape, or form. We would either be a little bit high in the atmosphere, so we would skip out, and if we got as low as we needed to get to eliminate the velocity, I believe we would burn up. I'm not 100% sure, but I think we would. Now, we do have enough fuel, because we've got an additional 4,000 meters per second more than we need, so that should be enough for mid-course corrections, and that would leave an additional amount of fuel to be able to do a braking burn. I guess just to be on the safe side, what I'll go ahead and do, and this will also give me an opportunity to show something new that I've learned, I'll go ahead and bring an extra fuel module with me. So let's go to the payload editor, and we'll grab an XR2 payload main fuel, and we'll put that in slot 3. And now we've got some additional fuel. Now, one thing you'll notice here, and this is something J.R. Swift, I believe that's his username, J.R. Swift pointed out in one of the previous videos, is that when you add additional fuel to your payload area, burn time calculator actually only thinks of that fuel as payload, as mass. So instead, what it does, when you have additional mass, it actually lowers your DV, and that's what burn time calculator is doing, because it's not taking into consideration the fact that that additional mass is actually fuel. It just thinks it's dead weight. So instead of adding to our overall DV, it lowers it. I was talking to a guy, a username by Zapman, on the Order Forum IRC chat room, and he actually told me about an equation that you can do to calculate the DV, and I think it was actually pretty interesting and quite useful. So I'm going to take the time to go ahead and explain that really quick. Hopefully it's really quick. There's a website, there's a Wikipedia entry that I'll link to in my description for the people that want to know more about like the actual formulas and such. But what I did after reading that Wikipedia page and getting a little bit of help from, well, a lot of help from Zapman, is I made a quick spreadsheet, and I just made it here in Google Docs, and this allows you to calculate your total DV, including your extra payload. So what we need to do in order to get that calculation, we need to start by getting the ship's total mass, and that's given to us right here. And that's going to be, I'm going to have to write it down because I won't remember it. So we need our ship's total mass, and that's 4.5. That's a 2. I'm actually seriously wanting to get LASIK eye surgery. 4252, or I just need a much bigger monitor. 42520.922. Okay, so that's our total ship's mass. And we'll start by putting that number in here. 42520.922. Now what we need to know is the weight of the vessel when it's completely empty. That means how much it weighs when there's no crew on board, when there's no APU, when there's no locks, when there's no RCS, etc. And that number is actually, for the XR2, you can get that right out of the PDF file for the XR2, and that's 16080. This is kilograms. And of course that number never changes. Now what we need to know is how much our RCS fuel weighs. Now a full RCS in the XR2 is 804, and as long as it's full, that'll never change. So we've got that number there. Now we need to know how much our APU fuel weighs. A full APU weighs 268 kilograms, and again, if it's full, that number will never change. Now we need to know how much our scram fuel weighs. We don't have any scram fuel since we're taking off from Mars, so that number is obviously 0. Now we need to know how much LOX we're carrying, how much it weighs, and that's going to be 6888.5, so let's put that number in. Now we need to know how much our tanks weigh, and our tanks are these. That's the LOX tank and the fuel tank. That's how much the tank itself weighs. Like if it's empty and there's nothing inside of it, we need to know the dry weight of those tanks. And you can get that information by coming up to here and just looking at any one of these, like the payload LOX, and you can see it's 355.2 kilograms. And the main fuel is the same thing, it weighs the same, 355.2. So we come over here to the spreadsheet and we put in that number, which you can see I've already done, and I've got that here as equals 355.2 times 2, because I've got a LOX and I've got a main tank, so that's 355.2, and there's 2 of them. So the total weight of my tanks is 710.4. Last piece of information we need is how much the crew weighs, and you can get that information by going to your scenario file and you'll look for all those UMMU lines, and each one of your UMMU crew, they have a name, they have an age, they have a pulse, and they have a weight in kilograms. And the weight in kilograms is the last number on each line, so you just take all of those, and there's 14 of them in the XR crew, you add them together, and that'll give you how much your crew weighs in kilograms, and then you put in that number there. So these are all the numbers you need, and then you're done with the, actually there's one more. These are basically most of the numbers you need, and then that helps you determine, according to the formula, what your M0 is and what your M1 is. And your M0 is actually your total vehicle mass, so this line is simply equal to that line. And then your M1 is all of these numbers combined. So M1 equals, you know, this number plus that number plus that number, and so on. Now the last piece of information you have to provide, the formula, is the ISP, and that's like your engine thrust, I guess. And that number is given to you in a couple places. If you look at the PDF file for the XR2, it tells you what the ISP of the XR2 is, but that number it gives you in the PDF is assuming you're in a perfect vacuum. It's really close to this number. It's like 25,980 or whatever. It's really close to this number. But to get a little bit more accurate number, we want to know what the calculation is on Mars, since we're sitting on Mars and we're not in a perfect vacuum. Now, it's not a gravity thing. It doesn't matter. It's not affected by gravity. It's affected by the atmosphere. And I don't know how to calculate that number, but it's actually given to us here in burn time calculator, and I'll make it bigger so you can see it. You can see engine ISP 25.931 km per second, so that's 25,931 meters per second of engine ISP. And you would note that if you put an XR2 on the moon, on Earth, on Europa, and anywhere else, this engine ISP would change depending on where you were, and it would only change a little bit, and it would only change depending on the atmosphere. Again, it's not affected by gravity. So we take this number, 25,931, and we plug that in here, and that finally gives us our calculation of 12,981 meters per second of delta V. And this number is derived by a simple calculation right there. Yikes, I hit something. There we go. And this gives you an accurate number for exactly how many meters per second you have. So instead of 9,812 meters per second, according to burn time calculator, what we really have is 12,981 meters per second. Now, I hope that wasn't too boring for you guys. I find that not only interesting, but I find it critical information if you're trying to start setting up your flights and know in advance if you're going to have enough fuel or not. If you remember in my Learn With Me videos, a couple of them, I was running out of fuel before I would get to my destination, and it was because I wasn't paying close enough attention to whether or not I would have enough fuel. And if you remember, I actually asked the question, how can I even know? Well, I've actually done a little bit more homework on that, and have learned a little bit about how to know if we're going to have enough fuel or not to complete our mission. So if we look at TransX, we'll just take a quick look here one more time just to show. And we go all the way back to stage 1. Then according to TransX, we need 7,071 meters per second worth of delta V just to get off the ground and get headed to Mars, or get headed to Venus. So let's do this real quick just to show. We'll put in our total amount of delta V that we have available to us, and now we'll subtract this number so after we get up off the ground and do our ejection burn for going to Venus, this is how many meters per second we will have left. And this is just an approximation. It's not going to be exact because actually once we get off Mars and get into orbit, we're going to jettison that fuel tank. That's going to get rid of some mass, which is going to increase the total amount of delta V that we've got a little bit. And also, once we're in space, we'll be more in a vacuum, so our engine ISP will go up a little bit, so we'll actually have a little bit more delta V. But nevertheless, this gives us a really close approximation to how much fuel we're going to have in order to do mid-course corrections. So then if we go forward to stage 5, and let's say we wanted to do a braking burn at Earth to get captured, well, I can see here that by the time I get back to Earth, as long as I don't use, let's subtract out this number here, as long as I don't use more than this amount of fuel for mid-course corrections, then I would have enough fuel by the time I get back to Earth to do the entire capture just using main fuel. Of course, I don't want to do that. I want to use the atmosphere as much as I can. But nevertheless, it's good to know that we would have the fuel if we needed it. So hopefully that's interesting. And I think that'll actually make for a good stopping point for this part of the video. So we're fueled up, We've got our calculations complete, so we know for sure that we've got the fuel that we need. We know we've got enough locks. And now what we're going to do in the next video is head out. Let me go ahead and reset this while I'm thinking about it.
Mission elapsed, time reset.
So if you have any questions about this part of the video, about the calculations or about anything that I've done, go ahead and leave those comments down below, and I'll see you in the next part.